a joke.
Canon, I'm a kid at heart. It's fine.
Mike's a millennial and trying to keep up. Okay, so it's noon. I have started recording again, and we will welcome Sonia to give a presentation on course perception surveys.
Hello, everyone. Screen still good? Can see my face? Okay, perfect. I still see a lot of bubbles, so I'll talk to the bubbles. Thanks for having me here today. I am currently the director of teaching assessment, and this is a new unit that was created. Hey, Michael, thanks for coming on camera. This was a new unit that was created basically to revamp the system of teaching assessment at UW. So you can see here, I don't know where it is on my screen, so I don't know what I'm pointing to, but you'll see I have the new, basically what's happening, long story short, I'll talk a little bit about the history in a minute. What's happening is that in April, when you do your course evaluations, we are officially switching to a brand new instrument, an instrument that has been in the making since 2014. Those items you see on your screen are the new items, they're core items. So what's happening is the university currently operates, as most of you probably know, our course evaluations are done on a faculty basis. So every faculty has their own set of survey items right now. And depending on what course you're in, you fill out the corresponding survey. So what's happening in April is that we are switching to an institutional model. And the institutional model means every single course at the institution across every faculty is going to have the exact same survey. So that is going to include the questions that you see on your screen there. The 7 items are on a Likert scale, which you're probably used to. The first 6 are 1 to 5. And then we have the 3 open-ended items, which will remain on all the surveys. Now, the new model is what we call a cascaded model, meaning there are going to be various levels. We are in development right now. The second level will be faculty. So what's happening right now, we're working with engineering and environment, and within each faculty, they'll have the opportunity to develop their own items to add sort of onto this. And eventually we'll have a level of department/instructor items on it as well. So it's still in the early process, but it is official. It's been approved by the University Senate that it is going to go live in April. So I just want to talk a little bit about why we switched. There were a number of reasons for this work sort of happening, and I didn't come on board, although it started in 2014, I didn't come on board until about 2018. And basically what happened was, as you might be aware, there's a lot of negative sort of publicity happening about course evaluations. And there's a lot of negative literature that's been sort of published in the last, I'm going to say like 5 years, pretty heavily, basically saying that these lack validity, they lack reliability, and they shouldn't be used as a measure of teaching effectiveness. Now, fortunately, our university and the higher ups do not believe that that is true. What we do believe is that the student voice is absolutely crucial, not only to sort of keep, problematic professors in check, also to celebrate really great professors, as I hope you've all had a chance to have, to improve courses, to improve program development, all those sorts of things. So I am a very big proponent of student voices, and I have been fighting to keep these alive, and I'm happy to say that we're pushing onward with them. We are moving to a holistic model. Again, this is part of a really longer sort of term project, but what that means is, in addition to just the course evaluations, instructors are going to be evaluated by peers, and they're also going to be submitting teaching dossiers. So we are currently, there's another committee that's at work on these processes, and eventually we're going to sort of tie them all together. So long story short, people, some professors, some faculty do not like me very much because I sort of have become the face of these perception surveys. But yeah, why I'm here today is because, so we have done, I should say, when I first started, we did a bunch of focus groups in 2018. I did bring these questions to students, so they have been seen by students. It's now 2021, so obviously we've had turnover. COVID slowed this process down big time. But why I'm coming to you is because the students are the most important in helping support this and keep the momentum going and moving this forward. So I'm hoping that I can keep sort of getting in front of student groups, connect with the various faculty student groups across campus, and just really have open conversations about this, as well as answer questions that anybody has, hear concerns students have. Basically, I'm sort of here as a voice for you. And I'm hoping that, you know, we can keep the support behind this from students. So with that said, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm happy to answer questions about the process, about the items, or anything you might want to ask. So yeah, I'll do that if anybody wants to jump in and ask some questions.
We'll go to Cannon.
I was just curious about the peer-to-peer evaluation from instructors. Like, are the instructors going to be attending classes with the student when they're evaluating them, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, so there's a committee at work on this. There is some information if you want to read more. I can pass along some links, but the committee at work on this is called CTAPT. So they are working on developing the mod. It's actually not developed yet. But yeah, what would happen in theory, based on what the literature advises, is that they'd have a peer evaluator assigned to a certain instructor, and they would attend lectures in addition to sort of reviewing their course syllabus and that sort of thing. So the position we're kind of taking is that students' voice is very important, and there are things that you can provide sort of a point of view on that like a peer evaluator wouldn't be able to, right? Like a peer isn't going to be a good assessor of if the students felt like the learning outcomes were actually assessed. And also in terms of defining a supportive classroom environment, a peer is probably going to be much more biased than students. So the idea is eventually to triangulate the data and hopefully be able to identify trends and things like that once we have all the pieces. But yeah, long story short, they would be attending lectures. That would be sort of part of the process, but it's not determined yet exactly what that's going to look like.
All right, we'll go to Vincent next.
First, I'm glad that the university is continuing to have the student course evaluations. I think they're very helpful. I've always been told in my program that the math faculty weights teaching abilities much higher than other schools, and I assume they use the course evaluations as part of that, and that's definitely been reflected in like the quality of the teaching that I've gotten at this university. So it was a bit surprising to see that what you mentioned about people saying that these might be biased. The only way I can think they might be biased is only students who complete the course do the course evaluations, which means students who are having a really bad time and like drop the course because of that like wouldn't be captured in course evaluations. Of course, that bias would like lead to instructors having higher ratings. Have you looked into it all about what you can do to, capture like what students who drop the course, like their reasons for that, like whether it was just, they signed up for too many courses and had to take a lower workload, or maybe if the instructor was just so terrible the student couldn't continue with the course.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. A few things to touch on that. So there are a number of documented cases of bias. The biggest concern among faculty is that these are actually biased in terms of gender, where you will see gender differences in scores. So like a male faculty member would receive higher scores than a female faculty member. This tends to be sort of larger in male dominated, like, so math, engineering, those types of faculties. The problem is that much of the literature that has looked at this is quite flawed methodologically. And like my background's in methodology, but people continue, I'll just use one example. One study claims to have used an experimental design to look at gender bias, and they failed to use a double blind procedure. So the instructors that were included knew which treatment they were in. So, I mean, we don't know the extent to which that may have bias. They did find that there was gender bias in the scores, where the males were scored, the male instructor was scored higher. But again, methodologically flawed. You can't take that those findings away with much confidence. So just like, that's just a note on, that's the biggest concern I hear. And then the more recent one is that there are racial biases. So faculty, particularly women faculty of color, are negatively affected. Now, we ran a huge pilot study at UW to explore this with the new instrument, and we found differences in the range of, like, it's a 5-point scale, right? So we saw like 0.2. So it was at the first decimal point that you were seeing the difference, or 0.05. So we highly recommend that chairs making decisions about scores don't look at decimals like that, because also, like you said, these course evaluations are typically negatively skewed. We always see a distribution where, you know, students tend to score in the 4 or 5 range. We don't typically see, if we see an instructor with 3s, 2s, and 1s, it's concerning, because I think it chances are good it might indicate something's happening, and we're trying to encourage chairs to explore that. So to speak to your comment, that's sort of just a side on the bias. There's a whole body of literature out there on that, and that is the biggest one I hear is gender. So that's what we've had a lot of pushback on. As for students who drop the course, I agree. I think those perspectives are huge. One of the pieces that we're working on within this office is eventually having a formal ombudsman sort of system, where we have a student ombudsman and sort of someone neutral as an oversight body, where concerns about courses and all those sorts of things could be brought forward. That, I'm saying that very preliminarily. I'll be sort of the advocate behind that, but just, it is on the radar, and there are some institutions that are doing that. McGill is one that has an established framework, and so we'll be looking to them for advice. So that is on the radar, just to touch on that. Nothing official yet, but definitely something we're looking into.
All right, thanks. So Cannon has a couple points here, so I guess you can just go ahead with either of them.
Kind of think on the gender bias. I don't know if this was a study that was on UW or not, but I heard it at UW that in one of the online pre-recorded courses, which ran for 2 terms, one of them, the professor's name was changed to a male person and the other was a female person. And there was stark differences, even though it was an online pre-recorded lecture slides kind of course. So there are obviously some issues with course perceptions. My actual question was going to be, are these reviews, like currently from what I can understand, the course evaluations, they are not publicly available for students. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I apologize. My dog is squeaking a toy in the background. It's loud. They are not. That is something that we have been looking into, and it was on the agenda of the committee that I was project manager SEP 2, so the course evaluation project. It is a continued sort of thing that we're debating. So I would, if that's something that is like of big interest to students, I would definitely encourage you to remain in contact and let me know what information you have, because I can push that forward. So it's something that we're definitely considering. There's obviously a concern on the faculty side that might sort of affect them. Particularly, we hear a lot young faculty who maybe teach for the first time and it doesn't go so well. Having that sort of negative, that negative evaluation so public might affect their career. So it is something that we kind of need to think about in terms of like honoring students and also keeping instructors feeling safe and like, it's not going to screw them over if they have one bad term or whatever, if that makes sense.
It does, but at the same time, like students do use other services like Rate My Prof to
Absolutely. Yeah,
these,
I agree. And I've told them that when they've wanted to kibosh these, I've said, like, I think we'd rather have something that's institutionally supported as opposed to having students going on to Rate My Prof to, so I agree 100%. I hear you. And like I said, it's definitely it's not off the table, it's on the table. It's just, we're trying to kind of push one thing at a time. It's a slow process for sure.
My last question was going to be, professors have a lot of freedom under the guise of academic freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So what can these course evaluations actually do? Because faculty cannot tell them how to teach. Like, so what's the point of having these if we cannot have a guaranteed way of improvement going forward?
Well, that's a really good point. And I think, so I'll speak to that. I agree 100%. Tenure really gives, especially once a professor is tenured, it gives them a lot of protection. And the hope is that with this new method and the new instruments, we're going to be able to better sort of observe long-term trends. And now there's somebody, currently me, and my office hopefully is going to grow, but there's an oversight, right? Like currently right now, faculties have complete and total control over these. But that's sort of going to be a bit decentralized. It's going to be more centralized, sorry. It's very decentralized right now. It'll be more centralized because it'll be sort of overseen by my office. So these are taken, like, I do want to emphasize, they are taken fairly seriously, especially for faculty who are newer or who are not yet tenured. And obviously, you're right, it depends on the department, it depends on the chair, it depends on so many different factors, but they are used summatively. So they look at teaching scores. When professors are up for tenure and promotion, they do look at their teaching scores. So it is imperative that, students fill these out. One thing that we're doing when we launch is we're actually going to do a large scale study of the qualitative comments, just to see, bias, what sort of complaints are happening, because U of T ran a study similar and they found that there was actually more concerning comments from students about professors' behavior than there was inappropriate comments that students were making about professors. So, I mean, I don't have like in all honesty, I'm not going to be able to police professors, but I think just these are important. Keep filling them out. We are moving to a more centralized process, which will hopefully create room for, calling out professors that are just really shitty. In addition to hopefully having, like I said, an oversight body that will students could go directly to with complaints, because I know that the process doesn't always feel safe. When I did my PhD, I did not have a good experience with my supervisor, and I literally couldn't tell anybody because I get it. Like as a student, you're like, well, you're all in it together, right? So I get that. I hear you. And I would encourage you to, if you have bad experiences, to sort of see the chain of complaint that you can have and kind of go from there. But we're hoping that'll become more centralized and there will be more accountability happening with the sort of move to this new office and the new systems of assessment.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Are there any other questions on teaching assessment stuff? Seeing none. Edward has a question.
Yeah, I guess this is more a question for the chair. As a result of this, I think we have generally council supports continuing with these course assessment surveys. Is this something we want to look into making a policy about, kind of our stances around this, formalizing it?
That I guess is an option. I'm trying to think. I don't think we have any policy on course evaluation specifically, but I think the motivation for this presentation was specifically that there had been some work with student groups before the pandemic, and there was sort of some buy-in developed, and then, you know, pandemic happened, and trying to just like make students aware of this process kind of more generally. I'm not sure if a policy stance, like of course council can do what it pleases, but I'm not sure that's like necessarily the end of like what we're trying to do here. Oh, Mike says policy 32. There's too many policies. Did I say that? Oh, Steph is here. There is a policy. So there you go. The best way to get an answer to something is to say something that's wrong. Yeah, so I'm not sure if, like, I guess council can take this on. Oh, it's actually an expired policy. It's like 8 years old. So yeah, maybe, okay, then there probably is room to update this. And maybe we bring that to Education Advisory Council, as Steph has sort of indicated in the chat. But as far as, are there any more questions for Sonia on this process, or academic policy in general? Maybe, I don't know. Well, we have an admin in the room. Steph introduces herself as VP Dead. Do you want? Are you gonna type in the chat? Or are you like in talking shape, Steph? Presumably, okay. I will interpret. I'll read from the chat.
So I think if I can just say, like, I think my point in being here is just to let you know that, you know, we're working on this, and hopefully you see me as an advocate for it, and just your voice is so important. You know, we need the support. If I had to predict when we launch, I think we're going to get a lot of backlash. We've had pushback nonstop from certain faculty, particularly FAO is not a fan of this, and they are really pushing to have it sort of kiboshed, and have what they would like to see is these used for formative purposes only, which means the student voice would be completely taken out of the equation for any summative decisions, meaning any tenure and promotion. So I think the key is just really to emphasize how important this is, and if you want it to stay, to make sure that you're lobbying fellow students, you're telling them to fill these out. We need, you know, response rates, and we need basically the faculty to know that it's important to you and that you want to keep it. So that's really my hope is, you know, I am behind this. I will advocate for students. I really, really believe I believe in the student voice. And I think to take it away would be really concerning, in my opinion, and also really sad to see, because students sit in courses for 12 weeks or however many weeks a term is. You know, a peer evaluator coming into 2-3 courses isn't going to get the full spectrum of things. So that was my hope for being here today. You know, we need your voices essentially to keep the momentum, and when we get the backlash, which will come from FAO, I'm waiting for it once we launch. we need the student body to kind of be backing us to keep these things alive.
Thanks, Sonia. So a couple things. Steph has written in the chat a note to council that faculty societies might consider inviting Sonia to your program society meetings or council meetings or whatever you call them within your faculty. If there are questions from student leaders about this process, if I can, maybe I shouldn't extend your willingness to attend on your behalf, but
yeah, no, definitely. I'd love to. I think that's the goal, just to keep getting momentum, like I said, behind it, because it's not a super sexy or exciting topic, but I think it's important, right? So I'm happy to attend. Please reach out if you have questions, concerns. Reach out. I'm here. Like I said, I see much of my role, and what keeps me going is that I want to be the advocate for the student voice, because a lot of times I'm getting shit talked to, and I've had faculty scream in my face and tell me that I'm sexist and all these things. So I'm here to support. If I can come to any meetings, yes, I'm in. Just let me know.
Excellent. So there's a point from Vicky, and I have to bring it up. Paul Ward talking about McDonald's at Senate. That was noteworthy for sure.
He's the worst.
So we'll go to Vicky.
Hi Sonia. Some of the things that you said, I think I would have to go talk with the chair of this committee, but I'm sure she would be they would be fully supportive of this. But I know recently there's been a student accessibility kind of committee thing from the report I did as a commissioner, and I know the first meeting had discussed about issues, at least about one prof, and I feel like maybe you could help bring some perspective to that. So
Yeah,
I guess if you could,
absolutely.
I guess Ben or Sonia, if you could get the contact so I can forward it on to the chair of that committee and saying we should get this person to come in to talk to us, because they will have a lot of the community as a whole will have a lot of perspective, because it's representation of a lot of different areas of UW, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to. You can share my email, I guess, Ben, or I'm happy to just send me an email, and I'm happy to connect with and help any way I can, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. And Steph mentioned in the chat, she can share your contact with our recently formed Committee on Access and Disability that Vicky was referring to. And then Vincent also has another question.
Hi. Just want to ask a few things just to help us be more effective at helping you. So first, with the point about this new instructors, or I guess this could even be for old instructors teaching new courses, is something like, not including the course evaluations as part of promotion decisions for maybe the first 1 or 2 times an instructor teaches a course, something that's been considered to help with that. And also, are there any particular faculties that you've been getting more pushback from? Because that would kind of help us focus our attentions more effectively.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I think that's why the push to have sort of a holistic model is happening, because then what could happen with a teaching dossier is that an instructor could explain yeah, my scores here are 3s, but that's because I tried an innovative method and it didn't work. Students didn't like it. So, I'm going to adjust it. Or, this was my first time teaching a stats course and I sucked at it because stats is really hard to teach. Something like that. So I think that's why the push to holistic assessment is happening. So that will kind of help protect. The other thing is one of the things we've developed to go along with the launch of the new instrument is administrator guidebooks. So they help advise administrators like chairs and those people serving on tenure and promotion committees what to sort of consider. And one of the things that we have put in there is don't just look at one or two scores. You need to look at trending of scores over time, because, you know, professors can have shitty years, just like we can have shitty years, and, you know, in our grades. So I think that is something that's definitely being considered, just maybe more through the holistic methods. And then obviously professors can have discussions with their chairs as well. And I hope that most chairs are meeting with faculty. This is one of the things we say in the guidebook is like, if you see a concerning score, meet with that faculty member and say like, what happened? Is this like, you know, did someone die in your life and you just sucked that year? Or is it, you know, a broader issue that you just aren't good at teaching, you know, a course of 600 students? So I think it's just, hopefully this new system will bring attention to that kind of thing and give professors a way to account for that. As far as faculties, the answer is yes. We do have more pushback from certain faculties. So math, and I know Vincent, I think you said you're from the math faculty. They aren't super thrilled about getting rid of the TOMPA. I know they have a calculation that they do called the TOMPA score, and they've been using that to trend like course evaluation scores for years. So they're not super happy. The other department we hear a lot of complaints from is psychology. There's a couple of loud voices, so some arts, and I think those are, I can't right now. Sorry guys, now I have kids interrupting. I'll be done in a little bit. Okay, I'll be out in a little bit. I'll get you something in a minute. Sorry guys, the joys of having kids, don't do it. Oh, I said that on recording, good. So yeah, there's a few faculties. There's engineering's really in support of moving towards this new model. But I think the voices need to be loud in every faculty, because I think every faculty sort of has professors that are like, let's get rid of these. So yeah, I don't know if that's a long answer to your question, but your faculty is definitely one that isn't super excited about moving to the new instrument just because of their long history with the TOMPA score.
So is the TOMPA score like the old system?
Yeah,
Evaluations?
it's some calculation they do. They're kind of a little bit secretive about it. They compile and average certain scores from your current course evaluation survey, and they use that to look at instructor performance over time. So, I mean, like I said, we're developing a faculty tier. And so once we work with math, if they want to continue doing that, they could very well include those items. We just haven't got to that faculty yet. So, yeah.
Okay. So would it be right that math is not necessarily resistant to the idea of student course evaluations as just much as they're a bit resistant to changing the format?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes my job easier.
Yeah, it's not, there's no faculty necessarily that specifically is like, let's abolish them, except for the psychology department. They are like that, to be very honest. But, and not every prof in it, but there's some loud voices. But I think it's just, there are, like I said, FAO's position is like, these should not be used. They've been fighting us so hard on this. And, you know, then we have the people like Hamburger Guy. We call him Paul Ward, Hamburger Guy now. So I think it's just, like I said, widespread support is good. Student support in every way we can have it is what will help kind of keep this going when we get that pushback and whatnot.
All right, excellent. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. So I guess I'll wait a minute for people to roll in at the last second. But thanks so much for joining us, Sonia. Really appreciate coming to our Sunday meeting.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and kudos to you guys and ladies all for working on a Sunday. I don't do work on Sundays. So good for you guys for meeting, and thank you for having me. And like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have complaints even about the items or you have concerns. Let me know. They, over time might change, but right now that's what we're sort of going forward with. So happy to help any way I can.
All right. Well, thanks again. And I think that this will adjourn our meeting of Students' Council. All right.
Amazing. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
everybody.
Ben, did you want to do announcements?
I didn't have any.
Okay.
Wait. I actually have something.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Why did I just mute myself? Hi. Sorry, I've been full of mucus this entire week. Can I share screens?
Sure.
How do I do that? Okay. Screen. Okay. Hello, here you go. I was told to do this last time. I have worked with staff to put this together. This is basically just an overview of the co-op student rights advocacy project. It looks like we can actually make some, I guess, a little bit of a dent on the Employment Standards Act thing. I looked back in files, and it turns out that we did already email the current government about it and got a response that was not so helpful. But the opposition, when we mentioned this to them during a meeting that Councillor Lan had set up, were very interested and supported in that. So I'm prepping a letter, making some movement there. I guess my question was more is this sort of research work plan something that council would like to pursue, or would you like to put a pin in it for potentially later? This does get at points and things that are mentioned in the annual plan, but I will admit that it's a lot more sort of holistic or more labor intensive. It should be very much doable, but yeah.
Cannon
Sorry,
has
I
a speak.
realize this is fairly last minute, and I am sorry because I am very sick. I just promised the research team that I would get feedback on this from council. So if y'all have any feedback, it's mostly this, I guess. That's the more important part.
Cannon has requested to speak.
I'm wondering what is the capacity for you and also the research department right now, and what's the opportunity cost for that? Will we have to drop any other projects, or can they do it on top of everything that's happening? Because I do understand once the governance review kind of comes into, the executives are going to be swamped with various things to do, and I don't want to overwork any of our executives any more than they already are doing, sadly.
Yeah, so the way that this is set up, very much so that my AVP Co-op and Experiential Affairs would be taking sort of the lead there. I don't have any more reports or particular projects for research to be going through. That said, they do work for the entirety of USA, so there could be some other potential projects sort of covered, but I've been assured that this is something that has sort of been planned out. There's also the opportunity that we can at least start this work, and if it becomes if it gets in the way of other things, we can always extend the deadline for it. But it seems like now there's some political will and some organization in order to go ahead with this. So I would feel okay going forward with this as long as council, if things work out such that we need to postpone it for a little bit, if council would be willing to provide that flexibility.
I guess then I would be in support of this, and would also be in support of flexibility in terms of deadline.
All right, thanks, Cannon. Does anybody else have any comments on this here research proposal? Okay, seeing none, then that is a thumbs up from council.
Okay.
And are there any other announcements? Okay. Hearing none, I adjourn the meeting at 12:40. All right, happy Sunday.
Bye, folks. Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to our marathon next month. I'm taking a break the entirety of next month for this.